We don't turn. There we go. Everybody's got it. So we are recording, and if you would prefer not to be recorded, why please turn off your video. And we won't see you, but we hope that you'll participate anyway. So again, welcome to Waves New Year. Today does mark the beginning of Waves calendar year. And this is going to be a really creative and positive year. We're going to be expanding our relationships with government agencies and other nonprofit organizations. And we really hope that you'll not just be along for the ride, but actually participating. The first slide, please, actually. Carolyn?
One moment.
You're busy. No. That's just a teaser, you see. What you see now is the teaser. There we go. Okay.
So I need to start the slideshow.
Okay.
There we go.
Well, actually, if you go down to the bottom, there you go. All right. Well, I already said my introduction, so let's go on to the next slide. So this is going to be a really very full and rich agenda. Our business portion, which is not all business, is going to be roughly a half hour. We have an excellent panel of speakers who will be introduced a little later on a topic which is of interest and importance for all of us, both as individuals, as village members, as caregivers, as village leaders. So I'm very, very pleased to have that. We will take a 5-minute bio break at 11 o'clock for questions. And then we'll resume, and we're anticipating adjourning about 11:30. I did want to remind you that, as you heard, this is being recorded, and all of our materials will be available within a few days on our website under Wave Programs Archive of Wave Events, and that's where you'll find all of our prior programs as well. So let's go on directly to the most important business of the day, which is the election of officers. Okay. Our bylaws have us elect our officers to the board at our first meeting in January. And the meeting nominates both candidates for the board of directors and the Wave board president. Other officers of the board are elected by the board of directors at its full meeting, which is going to be the first week in February. Next slide, please. I wanted to put up the names of those who are going to be on, who are continuing on the board this year. And you can see that we have Eva Lucero and Leo Sanchez from Washington, D.C., myself and Doug Gaddis from Silver Spring, Elizabeth Hale from Bethesda. In Virginia, we have Seal Garrett of Alexandria, David Prescott from Mount Vernon, and Wendy Zinker, who are all carrying on. And before we get into nominating the new people, I want to do a shout out and recognize people whose names aren't on there because they are just wrapping up their terms this year. A big salute to Carolyn Rourke, who's doing the recording, who's going to be doing the posting. Bless her heart, she has said that she will continue on to work on our website even after she leaves. And I told her that allowed me to sleep again. She has done just yeoman work. And among other things, many of you will have dealt with her because she is the one who you work with as you become members in the past. And also she's led our mentoring effort in the past. So thank you. A real applause for Carolyn and the work that she's done. Also leaving the board this year are Kathy Pointer of the very unique Kingdom Care Village in DC, who brought many important insights and in fact was the one who suggested that we start the mentoring program. Lori Pross of Maryland brought us many outstanding speakers over the past few years, including the keynote speaker from last fall, if you were there, on Blue Zones. So, but she's going to continue on to work with us on our special speaker efforts from now on. So thank you to Lori as well. Denise Snyder has led the Foggy Bottom West End Village, and she's had a wealth of experience because she was a leader of Hyattsville before that. And now is the ED down in Foggy Bottom, and she has just so much practical information. Her experience has really been invaluable. So please join me in thanking all of these people for their service to wave this far. Okay, I'm going to turn it over now to Wendy Zinker, who will be leading the nominations portion of our business meeting. Wendy, take it away. Next slide, please.
Yeah, thanks, Mary Jo. First, let me say that we called for nominations for the Board of Directors last fall, and nominations were due December 1st. So therefore, today I'm presenting to you a slate of nominees for your approval. The new candidates are Jim Sanders and Mary Ann Long. Mary Ann is a native of upstate New York. She led the planning committee that launched Seaville Village in Charlottesville, Virginia, on January 22nd, 2024, just this year. She learned about villages from reading Being Mortal and volunteered at Capital City Village in Austin, Texas, before moving to Charlottesville. Mary Ann has worked as a midwife, clinician, and educator for over 35 years and holds a Master's of Public Health and PhD in midwifery. Mary Ann, could you unmute yourself and just say a few words for us?
Sure, Wendy, thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity to serve on this board. It will be my very first time on such a board. And I am looking forward to learning a lot, both about boards and board management for my own use in our village, and also about what everyone else in other villages does about various things that come up. So thank you.
Wendy,
Thanks, Mary Ann.
Wendy, I just want to jump in and say that Mary Ann will also represent the newest of the new developing villages. So that is a very unique perspective that we haven't had on the board before. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And also Jim Sanders. Jim is an aging advocate. He's the adjunct professor of Business of Health Programs at Hopkins Carey Business School, a leader of the Howard County Age Friendly Program and the Howard County Community Foundation, and active in housing and health advocacy programs. He's a former board member of the Village to Village Network and the Village of Howard County. Jim, why don't you take a minute to unmute yourself and introduce yourself to the group?
Great to join you all, this important work. I see some people I've known from before, and I'm eager to learn things and make a contribution. So glad to be here.
Thanks, Jim. Returning and nominated for her second term on the board is Layla Riazi. Layla is a co-founder and president of Cheverly Village. She's been a member of the WAVE board since 22 and has served as the chair of the governance committee. She's also been active on the WAVE program committee. For example, today she's recruited and identified today's speakers. You can certainly find a longer bio for Layla on our board of directors page, as you will be able to find for both Mary Ann and Jim if they're elected. I also have to mention that in addition to all of the things that Layla does, she is phenomenal in terms of graphic artistry. She helped develop the New Wave logo and the award designs for Finishing Strong award. So she has unknown talents that we have to mine. Layla, why don't you take a minute just to reintroduce yourself to everybody?
Thank you for so much, Wendy. I've really enjoyed and I found it very rewarding to be part of the WAVE Board of Directors these past 2 years. Those past 2 years have flown by, and I'm looking forward to 2 more years. I enjoy helping all of us figure out how to better serve in our individual village capacities and how we can come together to have more of a voice in the area and find better ways of serving both our members and our volunteers. So thank you for the nomination.
Thanks, Layla. All right, so now we get to the business portion of this. And what I'm going to do is call for election of this slate of officers by acclamation. And you can do whatever you want. You can thumbs up, you can clap, you can give us a little icon in the window. But please, in some way, make your thoughts known. Okay, well then I'm going to move on to our next business, which is electing the WAVE president. And again, as Mary Jo has mentioned, the WAVE president is elected at the full meeting today. Other officers of the WAVE board will be elected at the next meeting in February. Let me mention that this will be Mary Jo's last year with WAVE, as she's going to be completing her last year of her term of service. And I also would want to mention, I think all of us know Mary Jo pretty well, but I want to say that she recently received the Montgomery County Commission on Aging's 2023 Community for a Lifetime Award for her dedication to enhancing the quality of life for older adults and making Montgomery County a welcoming place for people of all ages to call home. That included her work with WAVE to strengthen the network of nonprofits in Montgomery County. I mean, for those of us on the board, we're completely familiar with everything that Mary Jo has done. And that's all encompassing. It's everything that she's done for WAVE, which I can only tell you is considerable, but also the work that she's doing to extend WAVE's influence in Maryland, Virginia, and the District of Columbia. So we are incredibly lucky to have her in this leadership role. Having said that, in the same way, I would love for folks to indicate their concurrence with the election of Mary Jo as president of the WAVE board.
Aye, aye.
Good. We've got someone speaking up. Thank you. We are so lucky that she is devoting her time and attention to us. Well, having heard no objection and lots of approval, congratulations, Mary Jo, and congratulations to Mary Ann and Jim and Layla for joining the board and for your positions on the WAVE Board of Directors. Let me turn it back over to Mary Jo.
Well, thank you very much, Wendy. And, you know, this is a really a very positive position for me. I mean, I really enjoy it. The board is terrific. The activities are really valuable. The innovation that comes up through WAVE is very, very good. And I've really enjoyed meeting you. But as I said before we started, I'm really already salivating, so to speak, for our next in-person program, which won't be until October as of now, when we can all get together again. So thank you all very much for your vote of confidence. So where were we? What did we do? And what are we going to do? Next slide, please. Well, first of all, just to remind you of a little bit about, you know, who we are and what we do. I think you do realize that we cover Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, as well as Washington, D.C. And we're aware of 79 villages in our region. And, you know, what we try to do is strengthen and promote developing and established villages, and also to help build momentum for what has become called the village movement across the nation. And, you know, our tools are not very sophisticated, but we hope that they're powerful. Our educational programming, our networking opportunities, our mentoring, and the helpful resources that we can bring. So next slide, please. So at the end of last year, we had 55 villages, which was up from, I think it was 46 the year before, and like 30 something before that. So our growth trajectory is at a good slope. And we already have 29 villages who have paid their dues. So we hope the rest of you will either renew or join. I think $35 is just about the best investment that you'll make, you know, this coming year. So I'll be talking a little bit more in a moment about the mentoring and the Founders Award and the Finishing Strong and the ability to post events on our calendar. Next slide, please. So this sort of shows the difference between the villages we know and the villages that are member. And I'm not showing it to emphasize the difference. But again, you know, so we know of 79 total. And now in Maryland, we know of 43 and 29 are members. In Virginia, we know of 18 and 12 are members. And in DC, we know of 17 and 13 are members. And in West Virginia, we know and have, you know, one each from Shepherdstown. So we want to continue to grow those numbers, get the orange side moving up, but the blue side as well. We hope that those villages that are just under development or thinking of being developed will check our website under known villages. And if we don't have you there and you want us to link to you, why please contact us. You can send directly to me if you like, president@wavevillages.org. And if someone would put that into the chat, that would be good. Next slide, please. So how did we do? Well, we have, what we're doing today is called one of our plenary programs. They range from, 2 hours to 2.5, 3 hours long. And last year we did one on the state of villages, which covered a variety of different aspects of village activity. We did one on multi-generational villages. We did one on effective board relations. And then, of course, our joint conference with the Village to Village Network. And we had a total of 423 attendees at all those events, of which 192 were at the conference, and we got a lot of good feedback from there. And again, you can see there where you can find videos and materials, and we'll show that from time to time. Next slide, please. So we also have what we like to call our mutual support program. These are Zoom-based 1-hour sessions that are really just facilitated discussions. These are not supposed to be formal presentations of any kind, but they are always introduced by someone and who sort of frames some of the challenges in that area. But then it's really, as it says, it's facilitated Q&A. What's your problem? What have you learned about how to solve that problem, and sharing and learning from each other. And we had one last year on low-fee and no-fee villages, of which there is a surprising proportion. And then we had 3 workshops led by Chris Palmer on helping villages prepare programs on death and dying, because, as you know, we're going to be announcing the awards for the Finishing Strong award program that Chris started, and I'll get to more of that in a minute also. And we had 277 participants across those. Next slide, please. Next slide. Anybody?
I'm working on it. Hold on.
It's stuck. Well, anyway, it basically talks about the shared events calendar. One of the member benefits is the ability to post any of your open programs on our calendar. And last year there were 197 events that were posted there from villages all across the region. And I think that really shows how rich the village activity is now. You can jump ahead if you're able to. Are you just totally frozen out, or? I'll talk about the WAVE. Yeah, one more. There you go. The WAVE mentoring program. Okay, so as I mentioned, we started the mentoring program a couple of years ago at the suggestion of Kathy Pointer from DC. And this is one-on-one coaching and guidance and now the one-on-one coaching is for WAVE members only, but also startup villages. And we and our members provide the mentors. And we also have an agreement with the Village to Village Network that if a village has an issue for which we don't have resident expertise, we can refer them to V2V, and vice versa. If V2V receives a request about an issue from a village that's in our area, they will refer them back to us so that we can really make sure that the villages get the best help. I really encourage many of you to consider becoming a mentor. Turn the page, next slide, please. As you can see from these comments that were made, by people who had been mentored, it's very gratifying to be a mentor. It really is helping a village, grow through, whether it's an early growing pain or a more advanced growing pains. And we know that the advanced growing pains are sometimes even sharper than the ones at the beginning. So again, we hope that you will sign up to be a mentor. Next slide, please. And what are we going to do now? Well, we will have another plenary program in May 15th. Please mark your calendar. Registration is not open quite yet, but mark your calendar, please. And we already have lined up 3 new mutual support Zoom sessions. We have one on recruiting volunteers, which was suggested by someone who attended our October meeting. And as you can all imagine, that's an evergreen topic. You can never have too much discussion about recruiting volunteers. We've had at least 1, if not more, sessions every single year on this topic. So all of these, by the way, are open for discussion. The next one will be on multi-generational villages, because there was a lot of interest in that. That's a really growing interest among many, many villages, whether it's opening up membership to other generations or just including multiple generations in programs. And then there'll be one on sponsorship revenue, how to get businesses to help support your village on April 3rd. And again, all of those you can go ahead and register for those 3 only at the on our shared calendar. You just click on the event. Also, we have set the date for our in-person conference. It'll be October 16th in Silver Spring Civic Center. And those of you who attended last year thought that was a really good locale. You really appreciated that. Next slide, please. Now here, WAVE needs you. Okay. I don't know if you are old enough to remember that old recruiting sign. Next slide, please. So, well, what can you do to help? Well, again, first of all, please join WAVE. These are really important benefits for your modest little $35 membership fee. Become a mentor. I've mentioned that. We want mentors. We think that you will be very gratified, and you can sign up online. And by the way, if you need a mentor, this is also the URL that you would go to sign up to receive a mentor. And participate in what we're calling, collaborative programming. We really like to hear from you, what you think is of interest. I mentioned that the one on recruiting volunteers this year was suggested by someone in October. And that's really the way, like the multi-generational and low-cost, no-cost programs started too, because someone contacted me or someone else and said, we think this is a really important issue. Next slide, please. Okay, well, we are really looking for people to help us in a variety of other ways. These are some of the skills we need. Again, we have been a working board all along. Everything that has touched you has been done by the 12 or 13 people who have been on our board. And we definitely need a lot more bench depth in communications and marketing and outreach and conference development, and especially website and database management. I'm going to hold on to Carolyn as long as I can, but we still need more help on that. And also, we are currently in discussion with the Maryland Department of Aging regarding formalizing a partnership to support and strengthen villages in Maryland. And we do anticipate the need to hire a project manager and a bookkeeper to facilitate this work. So please stay tuned for upcoming announcements about the projects and the available positions and other opportunities for involvement. Next slide, please. Okay, this is really a high point of the morning. I think certainly of our business meeting, the Finishing Strong Awards. Okay, next slide, please. So as I believe you know, that Chris Palmer and his wife Gail Shearer funded this award. It was their idea. They came to us and they said, Chris especially believes very strongly in this. I think all of you now have heard him or seen him in one venue or another, and they really wanted to be able to extend these conversations and prompt people and encourage people and support villages in having these conversations about end-of-life issues. This does expand the long-term impact of our area villages. And these the activities are intended also to create programs that could be copied across the country. And by the way, Chris and Gail do intend to support this year again. And so we will send out a notice when that opens. But again, you can learn about the award at this very simple URL on the bottom. Next slide, please. We need the red carpet and the trumpets. Da, 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 da. We are very, very happy that the award is split among 3 villages this year. We have Waterfront Village in the district, which will be offering 3 Be Prepared and Get Ready programs. And Pam Troutman is the executive director. And I'm going to ask Pam to unmute herself and to just say a few words about this. Actually, let me only say that this award was for proposals, not completed projects. It was for proposals for a village to develop these programs for their members or their community if they don't have formal membership. And so we hope to, in fact, we intend to be hearing from each of these winners toward the end of the year when they can say, oh, and this is how our program went, and here's the lessons we learned that, you know, does or doesn't work. So so Pam, would you just give us a few words about your project?
Sure. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for the support for these programs. We're very excited about them. We have 3 pieces that are all things that look ahead towards the end. So the first piece that we're going to be doing, and have actually already completed, is we've hosted a program with the 911 office in the district, the Office of Unified Communications, to help people understand what happens when you call 911 and sort of how to navigate that process. And of course, that sort of program often leads to the need for another program. So our next program will be connecting with the EMS services in the district to have them in to talk to our members. The next piece of this program we'll be doing is helping our members sign up for something called Smart 911, which is an online profile that connects some of your information to 911 and helps first responders know where they're going and who they're coming to care for. The next program that is sort of part of this grant is something called the What If Kit. And that's something that will help our members prepare their finances and keep a very clean record for their family members in terms of device access, smartphone access, that sort of thing. And our final piece deals with the social and emotional tasks that come towards the end of life. We'll be doing a writing workshop that is based on a book called 4 Things That Matter Most. And there are 4 questions. Please forgive me. I forgive you. Thank you, and I love you. And so this is sort of a tossed salad of different issues, but we're excited to be offering all these programs to our members. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We'll look forward to hearing about how that goes. Valley Village will offer death cafes, and Lori Miro is the president of the board and will describe those to us.
Good morning, and also thank you so much to Chris and Gail and all the people at WAVE for this award. It's very encouraging to us. We are offering to all of our members a small group conversation, open, confidential discussion of death and dying, supported by a facilitator. This is Death Cafe is a concept that's been that I think it has a social patent is what it's called, but it's used internationally and there's a specific format, but it is very open. We are fortunate to have a local facilitator trained specifically for death cafes who will facilitate, and we hope our cafes will increase participants' awareness of death to help them and us make the most of our finite lives and to share here and explore our own and others' ideas about death. And we've done a lot of many programs on different aspects of preparing for the end of life. This is the first time we're doing a program where we want our members to express their own ideas and feelings and so on. So we're really excited about getting those conversations going, and we've had a very strong support response already just by putting it on the calendar without even doing any promotions. So excited about that. Thanks so much.
We'll look forward to hearing about it. And Northwest Neighbors Connecting in Baltimore is going to offer a new series of discussions called Be More Prepared. Annie Shimanovich is the director. Annie, will you say a few words about that?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. On behalf of Northwest Neighbors Connecting NNC, we want to thank Chris and Gail and Mary Jo and Wei for this award and for the opportunity to bring these important conversations surrounding end of life to our village and hopefully beyond. We look forward to beginning our series in May, and we'll be focusing on communication with our loved ones, the practicalities of end of life, and sharing our legacies. We know that end-of-life issues and family dynamics are often sensitive. People want and need to have these conversations, but often need a little push. And we're hoping to jumpstart the conversation with our series, which we're calling Be More Prepared. And we'll focus on communication, such as how do we prepare ourselves to communicate with our loved ones. We have a social worker who is dedicated to this area of communication with older adults. We'll focus on the practicalities, such as getting our financial and practical affairs in order. And the third prong of our program will be the ethical will, and will help our members write their families' personal stories, their own personal philosophies, and pass along their achievements, life lessons, blessings, and hopes and forgiveness to their families, friends, and community. And we really look forward to it. And thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you, Annie. We have Chris Palmer in the audience today. Chris, would you offer some comments and thoughts on this?
I just want to congratulate Pam and Anne and Laurie. I'm delighted by their programs, excited to be supporting them, and look forward to seeing the results of their work. Thanks, Mary Jo.
Well, thank you, Chris. Okay, next slide, please. And coming soon, coming again, I guess I should say, is that for the third year, we will offer the Founders Award for Village Excellence. And this is for completed or ongoing programs or services that are outstanding examples of what villages can do to help their older adults thrive in their communities. And it includes, and this is supported by the WAVE board. It was initiated with a very generous contribution from, oh, I'm blanking on her name, so I'm showing my time. But anyway, but it is now supported by the WAVE board. And we've divided it into two parts, one for a village with a budget under $2,500 and one with a village a village with a budget over $25,000. And we haven't yet exactly nailed down the applications period, but it is coming soon. So stay tuned. And again, you'll be able to find more information about this under wavevillages.org, and then just type in Founders Award. All right, next slide, please. I'm going to turn the chair over to Layla. As I said, she has identified these people and brought them in, and she and Elizabeth Hale, worked on putting this program together. So I do want to say that we will take a short break after this, and then at the end of the Q&A, I will put some reminders and follow-up emails and contact information back up. But now we're ready to start what is really the heart of our program today. Take it away, Layla.
Good morning, everyone. We're incredibly privileged to be able to have Dr. Claudia Thorne and Ms. Sharon Johnson with us this morning. You see, I just am continuing my evening meetings. I'm just going to do a very brief introduction because I really want for you to be able to hear from them, and you'll learn more about them in a number of ways. But Dr. Claudia Thorne is a researcher, assistant professor with the College of Behavioral and Social Sciences of Coppin State University. She's also a member of the state of Maryland's Virginia I. Jones Alzheimer's Disease and Related Disorders Council. And I'm happy to say that she's also a member and volunteer with our village here in Cheverly Village. Sharon Johnson is the Director of Aging Services. She also is with the Maryland Umbrella Group for the Director of Aging Services. She's a community case manager, dementia care practitioner, and certified dementia caregiver, support group facilitator, and does much of this work also with the city of Greenbelt, Maryland. And with that, looking first to have both of you, if you just want to say just anything more to add to your brief introduction, and then turning over to Claudia Thorne to start her presentation.
Okay.
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, just want to be able to share my screen and make sure that is good. So good to see everybody today. Okay, I think I'm on a screen share now. Am I?
Yes, we can see you. We are seeing your full screen, ready to start your slide presentation.
Okay, great. This technology is always very interesting. Okay, so the title of my presentation today is Raising Awareness Within the Village, Approaches to Implementation. And I want to thank you, Laila, for inviting me to speak today. In addition to the bio that you heard, I was also a caregiver for my mother who had Alzheimer's. And that experience of caregiving really, truly informs a lot of my work, because I know the joys and the benefits and the burdens and the experiences of caring for a loved one with Alzheimer's, as well as seeing what she went through. I'm not going to go through. What I am going to do is talk about, I think this is the best description of dementia. What is dementia?
Dr. Thorne?
Yes.
I just wanted to let you know, if you go to the top and if you choose slideshow, we'll see your full slides without the previews of all the future slides, if that works for you.
Let me.
And the top bar, you should see slideshow.
Got it.
And you can, and then it should be able to have you start from the beginning. Yes, from the beginning, all the way over on your left.
Okay, how are we doing?
I can't tell. I don't know if someone else can advise the next thing.
I believe what she needs to do is go back in and look at view, not slideshow.
Okay. So end slideshow.
Right. Then if you go into view. Okay, and if you go into reading view, that should do it. On 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from the left. There you go. There you go.
Okay, great. So we're going
Beautiful. Thank you.
Then. Wonderful.
You're welcome.
Thank you so very much. Okay. So my slide is not advancing. I have a new
It's advancing line by line, I believe.
If you click next, or click the on your mouse, your left click, it should go to the next slide.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Okay. So I think we're ready to begin now. So I wanted to talk about the bookshelf story to really give an understanding of what happens with dementia, because I do believe that a picture is worth 1,000 words. And I want you to think about a 70-year-old woman who has dementia. Imagine there is a full bookcase beside her. Each book inside the bookcase represents one of her skills or memories. At the top shelf are memories of her facts and her skill for thinking in complex and complicated ways. For people with dementia, the top or outer part of the brain is damaged first. Skills like math, using language, and keeping one's behavior in check are in this part of the brain. In our bookcase story, these skills are also books on the top shelves. When dementia rocks the woman's bookcase, the books on the top shelf begin to fall out. The woman may not remember what she ate for breakfast or that she has to pay for items at the drugstore or who came to visit this morning. Emotions and feelings are lower down within the bookshelf, just as they are at the lower or inner part of the brain. This is the instinct area of the brain. Feelings like love, happiness, frustration, sensing, and respect reside here. As Dimension continues to rock her bookcase, the books on these lower shelves stay for a much longer period of time. I believe this bookshelf story helps to explain the different thinking skills and memories and the effects on dementia. Facts and complex thinking falls away first. Emotions and feelings last longer. So when someone has Alzheimer's, what are the 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's? And this is really important for all of us and important for all of us to know. In my teaching at Coppin, all of my students become dementia friends, and some of them become dementia champions. And this whole raising awareness is we're really talking about a mass effort in the community to raise awareness about dementia and Alzheimer's and to reduce many of the stereotypes. So what we're talking about here, we're talking about memory loss that disrupts life, challenges in planning and solving problems, difficulty in completing familiar tasks at home, work or leisure, confusion with time or place, trouble understanding visual relationships, images, and spatial images, new problems with words and writing, misplacing things and the ability to retrace steps, decrease poor judgment, social withdrawal, changes in mood and personality. It's important to be aware of what this looks like so that as village members, as family members, when you begin to see changes, a red flag gets raised, and we can proceed towards early diagnosis and early intervention. Very often, it's the person that's closest to the person who has dementia or Alzheimer's that sees these signs and symptoms. I was the one that diagnosed my mother because what I noticed was that her, she was in her 90s. Her personality was changing, decreased poor judgment. She would start tasks at home and could not complete them. Confusion with understanding relationships. And I said to her, because my mother is a social worker also, I said, Mom, I think you need to get a memory test. What do you mean I need a memory test? There's nothing wrong with my memory. I'm fine. And of course, she was very defensive. But when I shared with her the signs and symptoms, she agreed to go to a doctor. For village members, that is so incredibly important because you want to have intervention as soon as possible. Because it is a journey. The dementia and Alzheimer's, it's a journey from the perspective of the person living with Alzheimer's as well as the caregivers. You all know it's a very, very progressive disease. And initially, when Alzheimer's is identified, you want to begin to pack your bags for the journey. The journey goes from no impairment. The person appears normal, stays mentally and physically active. to a very mild decline. Cognitive forgetfulness, still no treatment is necessary. Mild decline, you will notice a change and decline in function, and Alzheimer's disease can be diagnosed, and we will talk about that a little bit later. We'll progress to moderate decline, where thinking and reasoning become more obvious and new issues appear. And it's so important to begin to get the early diagnosis during number 2 and number 3, okay? And particularly number 4. Where thinking and reasoning become more obvious and new issues appear and clear signs and symptoms of Alzheimer's disease are seen. Then there is progression to severe decline, significant confusion, agitation, require help with activities of daily living, and severe decline where a person requires constant supervision, and very severe decline. For village members who are going into homes and who have existing relationships with their neighbors, for family members that have existing relationships with their neighbors, you are in a prime position to identify Alzheimer's very, very early on, or to support the person in your group and their family members in accessing early care. The most important thing is a medical diagnosis for diagnosing Alzheimer's, and that can include a medical history, neurological exams, cognitive and functional assessments, brain imaging, and cerebral spinal fluid. But I think what's really essentially important with aging is that not every symptom of mild cognitive decline is related to aging or related to Alzheimer's. And I'm just going to disclose and share with you one of my own personal experiences. Because I'm so close to this, I had a medical issue that I'm not going to go into detail, that convinced me that I had Alzheimer's disease. I was convinced and very, very anxious. With further investigation and advocacy and self-advocacy, it was not Alzheimer's at all. And so that alleviated, okay, a lot of anxiety on my part. But what happens when there is, and so for people who are aging, any sign of any health changes need to be addressed. And particularly if there's Alzheimer's disease, early diagnosis, so that one can begin to get into treatment, and one can begin to make the behavioral changes that can preserve cognitive health. The Mediterranean diet, walking, exercising, more water, developing plans for the future, participating in clinical trials. There's so many trials that are available, and there are registries that are available, that a person who has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease can begin to participate in clinical trials so that more information can be generated about the disease, and they can prioritize their own health care. Drinking water, the Mediterranean diet, exercising, and appropriate vitamins and minerals, and appropriate socialization goes a long way to preserving cognitive health. Also, having an early diagnosis, there are emotional benefits to it. It lessens anxiety because, as I said, it may not be Alzheimer's. It can be something that is really treatable with vitamins or water or, other kinds of medication. If one knows that they have been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it gives you really enough time to get your financial and legal affairs in order. And then that's so important for those decisions to be made while one still has mental capacity. Decide about the will, or the living will, the power of attorney. Decide what are the preferences in where one needs to live. And it also gives the family more time to begin to plan for Alzheimer's. So often people are thrust into the crisis of Alzheimer's and not knowing where to go or where to turn. And I think you probably have experienced that within the village context. You know, someone is suspected of maybe having Alzheimer's. No one knows what to do. We don't know how to have the conversations. The conversations have not been normalized. But if we begin to have those kinds of conversations by raising awareness, becoming dementia friends, having dementia-friendly initiatives in your community, it gives the person who is living with Alzheimer's a higher quality of life and more time to plan for the future. So, you know, as I shared with you, I serve on the Maryland State Alzheimer's Council. And what I understand, and you know, and from having been there before, what are the needs of caregivers? You know, your loved one has a diagnosis, and there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of anxiety, but what really does the caregiver need? This is the reports of a research study that was conducted by Johns Hopkins School of Nursing, fresh off the press last week. And these are the needs of caregivers as identified by caregivers. Caregivers want to have more memory disorder education. Caregivers want to know what are the community resources. Caregivers want to know what is dementia-related behavior and how do I manage that? Persons live with Alzheimer's. I know persons that have lived with Alzheimer's 15 years. Just because you have a diagnosis of Alzheimer's, it does not mean the end. In the meantime, how do you give the person living with dementia? How do you engage them in meaningful activities? Not everything is always medical related. It's not always the medicine and the doctor visits. You can still, and as a family, begin to make plans for travel, for enjoyable things, for family time together, to pursue interests. You really want to keep the person living with dementia involved in meaningful activities, particularly the activities that they engaged in prior to the diagnosis. That becomes really important. The question really becomes, how do I improve communication in caring for my loved one? How to speak to them, how to touch them, how to get on eye-level contact, how to not give complicated directions. In some families, engagement of other family members, of sibling and children are really, really important. And caregivers really want to know, how can I engage the family, particularly where there has been family discord and disharmony? How do I recognize and manage safety hazards? What about help with activities of daily living, cooking, cleaning, toiletries, taking medication? Help me with decision making. How do I communicate with providers? If someone has been hospitalized, how do I prepare for a transition back home? And when and how and when do I place in assisted living or nursing home? That's a big, big decision. How and when and who's going to pay? Okay. A very, very essential. And really, how do I support myself? A lot of the research is now showing that caregivers for persons with Alzheimer's, that the caregivers are having a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, and a lot of related to obesity, alcoholism, days off from work, minimizing their own income. And so this is what caregivers do in fact need to know from the perspective of caregivers. From the perspective of clinicians in their assessment, this is what persons living with dementia as well as caregivers need to know. Home personal safety. How do I keep my home safe, make my home safe the falls, the cooking, the kitchen. What general medical care is necessary and needed, and who are the providers? I'm of the perspective that one really needs to have, when get a certain age, a provider that's very knowledgeable of geriatric care. Daily meaningful activities, management of neuropsychiatric symptoms, management of cognitive symptoms. Who's going to pay for all this? Alzheimer's is a very expensive disease. From the perspective of the ongoing medication, having support in the home, what are some of the legal issues with care planning? Caregivers do need, and this is kind of redundant from what I said before. But you will have it because I will forward this slide to you. So in the early stages, what needs to happen? There needs to be a processing and acceptance of the diagnosis. There needs to be ongoing treatment goals, planning goals as one moves through from the early stages to the mid stages of the disease. One needs to really, really begin to engage informal and informal support. And I was having a very interesting conversation with my co-presenter yesterday, and we were talking about there. Unfortunately, there is not a one place where someone can go to identify all the resources. Everyone who is a caregiver, a care partner, or each village is going to really have to identify the resources in their community. It's so important to stay positive, to avoid stress, and work together, and begin to take advantage of all the resources in the community. At the middle stage, we talk about what are the caregiving responsibilities, and also how do you mediate working and all the support that a person is requiring. And the same thing with the late stage. I think something that really needs to be planned for is after caregiving, because the caregiving process, it starts and then it ends. And caregivers need to know after caregiving how to deal with the loss, the grief, the relief. It's very complex. And guilt. How do you begin to sleep again? How do you redefine your purpose in life? And then the re-entry part of having time, dealing with loneliness. How do you take care of yourself? And how do you embrace life? So as I mentioned, I am on the Maryland State Virginia Jones Planning Committee. And the state plan for 2022-2026 has 5 goals. Goal 1 is to expand efforts to support public awareness, prevention, and early detection of Alzheimer's and related dementias. Goal 2 is to enhance quality, access, and coordination of care. Goal 3 is to enhance and expand supports for family caregivers. Goal 4, which is to advance research and encourage evidence-based practices. And Goal 5, which is to enhance data capabilities related to dementia and dementia impact and the effect on interventions. So I want to share with you, because I work on Goal 2 and 3, which is identifying some of the stakeholders and resources in terms of associations, occupations, and roles. I think what's particularly important, okay, is that you know at the local level, who are the organizations and that you are working with. And some that we came up with include the area agencies on aging. I know each area or each state may call it something different. The Association of Caregivers, medical schools and schools of aging, Association of Social Workers, the Alzheimer's Association, which I find to be a great resource. Hospice and palliative care networks, adult daycare workers, elder care law attorneys, faith leaders, etc. And what I think is really important from the perspective of the village is for your jurisdiction is to begin to identify these stakeholders, to develop relationships with them and find out what resources they in fact offer, because there in some ways there's not a lot there, and in some jurisdictions there is a lot there. There's a lot there in Baltimore. There is a lot in the District of Columbia. That's where I'm most familiar with. You want to know who are the nursing homes, the geriatric hospitals, the psychiatric hospitals. You need to develop a close relationship with the Area Agency on Aging, the DC Department of Aging, the Maryland State Department of Aging. But I think what's really important is that, you know, in our research as a committee, we found a lot of training resources that were free, okay, and that can be deployed and utilized within the various your networks in your local jurisdictions. And some of those training resources, I think I have that on the next slide. Okay, I have the, yeah, these are the stakeholders. The next slide include the Center for Disease Control has a Alzheimer's disease public health curriculum. The UCLA has caregiver training videos. The Caregiver Action Network has a caregiver toolbox. Young Onset Dementia Education and Support, Bright Focus Foundation, NIA, HSRA, and the Alzheimer's Association. Curriculum that can be deployed and utilized quite easily. So as I'm approaching the end of my presentation, once again, I was asked to make this really very practical for caregivers. What is it that you can do? You can educate and progress educate yourself. Get on the internet. Talk to people. Learn about diagnosis, the progression of disease, the challenges encountered. Caregivers, and persons living with Alzheimer's, organize your financial and legal affairs. Become friends with an elder care attorney. Organize your informal and support system. Know who these people are, who the contact people are. Find community resources. And what's really important to know is that you are not alone. Ask for help. Have a support group. Participate in a support group. Start a support group. When I was caregiving, I would go to a support group in Silver Spring. I believe it was Holy Cross Hospital. And I learned so much in that support group because it was just such a good experience to sit in a circle with people for an hour who were having the exact same experiences that I was having in caregiving and the frustrations. One of the things I found to be really, really very helpful is utilizing a care manager. Find that person, a care manager who knows all of the resources in your local jurisdiction. Also, to find the strengths in caregiving, to look at it from a perspective of love. And now I have the opportunity to care for someone that I love. And engage in advocacy. You have to be an advocate with the doctor, with everyone. You have to literally demand what you in fact need and want. And what can villages do? You can start Dementia Friends group, and this list is not exhaustive. You can start a dementia friendly group. You can host support groups. You will have memory clubs. Partner, have written agreements with stakeholders. Disseminate information. I think the disseminate information and normalizing conversations about Alzheimer's and dementia is so important. When my students go out into the community and they're conducting dementia awareness sessions at their neighborhood association, at their church, over Thanksgiving dinner, at birthday parties, in the workplace, we who are in the aging work are very aware of dementia and Alzheimer's, but there is so much that people don't know. There are so many stereotypes that are out there. And the amount of students that have had come back and say, oh, I didn't know that's what was wrong with my grandmother. Okay. Now I see what was wrong with my grandmother. We want to normalize conversations about dementia and Alzheimer's so that people are engaging in the conversation, that their awareness has increased, they're aware of resources, and information is very easily accessible in the community. I wish I could give you a roadmap with go here, go there, go there, go there. It does not exist, okay? But there are so many people who are working on it. And so I talked about a conceptual approach, and now a co-presenter will talk about the practical experience of implementing some of these programs in Prince George's County. So I'm going to stop sharing now, and I guess we will entertain questions afterwards.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Thorne. I did want to let everyone know, please place your questions in chat. Elizabeth is there to organize, and avoid any duplication of questions so that we can really optimize the time available for questions. So please, Dr. Thorne, I especially what you ended with about the dissemination of information and normalizing conversations, it really, really will stick with me, in this. And yes, I'll populate the chat with your questions. And now if we could turn to Ms. Sharon Johnson.
Hi, good morning, everyone. And thank you again to Layla and to WAVE for providing this opportunity to share and highlight the importance of, as you mentioned, normalizing the discussion around Alzheimer's. And not only that, but identifying some practical resources and programs that you can make use of, but also share with your community in your respective villages. So let me share my screen. Okay, so today I'll be speaking from the perspective of and wearing a couple of different hats. As Layla mentioned when she introduced me, I am the Director of Aging Services with the Maryland Umbrella Group, but I also wear another hat with Dementia Friendly America in Northern Prince George's County, and that's under or within my role as the Community Case Manager with the City of Greenbelt. And so all of those sort of run together, even though I have different hats and, but I'm serving the same community and oftentimes offering a lot of the same resources and programs and working with families that, have the same needs. And that is, needing to better understand what their family member is experiencing, how to best help and support them, but then also how to find the support that they need as caregivers. Okay, so Dr. Thorne, as she mentioned, gave a more conceptualized approach, macroscopic approach, and understanding, providing an overview of what Alzheimer's is, what to look for, how to communicate and with a person who has Alzheimer's, and then what steps communities can take, caregivers can take, and individuals can take in helping to sort of plan and prepare for that process. I will identify some of the programs and resources that we actually use, work with, community partners that we work with and share with families in the community. And in hopes, that you all will find the benefit of sharing these with your villages. Okay, so just to give you a little bit of background, the Dementia Friendly America initiative was started. It's a nationwide initiative, but here in Prince George's County, we started. We jumped onto the initiative back in about 2015, and so our focus here in the county is to enhance the quality of life for persons living within Prince George's County who have been diagnosed with dementia, supporting their caregivers, to implement education programs. And so one of the programs that we have, and this kind of highlights that, it is the Powerful Tools for Caregivers program, and we've added on a caregiver component. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. That was just a grant that we were awarded specifically to support caregivers of persons with dementia. And then we have measures in place to evaluate the impact and effectiveness of that program. Okay, and so just to further spell it out, provide education about dementia to persons living with dementia, provide dementia education to community gatekeepers and other sectors in the community. So we're reaching out to businesses, to faith-based organizations, to banks, wanting to again, educate them on what it looks like to interact with a person who may be diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And so I'll give you an example. If an individual may come into the bank every day for a week, educating that bank teller, okay, if this person is withdrawing money every day, that's something that should, they should take notice of. And either it could be that the person is forgetting that they're withdrawing money and coming back, or it could be something, equally as serious, is that they're being financially exploited. So just providing that education to the bank teller and, to the staff there on, if they notice something that is out of the norm, then how should they respond? What are the next steps that they should take to help protect their community, person in the community? Okay, so, and that's the goal, to do that with various sectors within the community. All right, so just to give a little bit of context, in 2017, about 7.6% of Maryland's older population living in poverty, with minorities comprised half of the low-income older adult population. And so if we look at more rural areas such as Allegheny County, Dorchester, and Garrett County, those were some of the areas that have the lowest, have the most significant proportions of lower income adults, excuse me. And so moving on to a more recent headline that I think we're all pretty familiar with, just over 16% of residents age 65 and older living in Prince George's County there are estimated to have been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And so Prince George's County was listed as the fourth highest county for the prevalence of the disease. So Prince George's County, unfortunately, is listed ranked high on this list, and has been getting a lot of attention as a result of this, and which I think is a good thing, because we need to really, put more accessible resources within the county and across the state of Maryland as well. But as Dr. Thorne mentioned, the resources that family members need is not just found, in one area. You have to really cast your net wide to identify the resources that that you need for yourself and your family. All right, so we'll turn our attention to a dementia-friendly community. What that is, I talked a little bit about that. And so how do we make that progress in getting closer to becoming a dementia-friendly community? As you see here on this infographic, these are the various sectors that the Dementia-Friendly America initiative aims to connect with: first responders, libraries, grocery staff, banks, and transportation. Just again, going back to the focus of normalizing the conversation around, talking about dementia and Alzheimer's, but then also providing the necessary information to, those who are working professionals, but also the community, on how to respond and what next steps should be taken should you encounter someone who you may feel it's not always evident, but it may seem that they have some type of cognitive diagnosis. All right. So one first resource, and this is across the state, as was mentioned, are the area agencies on aging or MAP offices. That would be sort of a central location that families, caregivers, or persons with a diagnosis can contact for support services that they have available to them under the Older Americans Act. Okay, so now I'll go a little further into a number of organizations that are, not so much focused or centralized in Prince George's County, but across the state of Maryland, and also nationwide. So the Alzheimer's Association has what they call an ALZ navigator, as you see. And so this is a number that's available to caregivers or persons who are diagnosed. And they have social workers that are available, as well as counselors and therapists who can help them, one, provide education. They have a wealth of resources and knowledge on their website, but it's always, I think it's helpful to talk with a person. It just makes a world of difference. So you can connect with a live person to gain, information about resources, about support groups, but then they also have this navigator that can help you to develop a care plan, in a sense of some of the things that Dr. Thorne mentioned about the areas that the discussions that you should begin to have, like, legally, do you have your advanced directives in place? Financially, do you have a plan in place? Because Alzheimer's, it is a disease that is, longstanding. An individual who is diagnosed with Alzheimer's, can live, 10, 20 years. So you want to have a financial plan in place, in addition to other resources to have in place. And so locally for, I know Prince George's County, there is a contact person for the chapter. He serves other counties beyond Prince George's County, but I would say to contact him if you wanted to get information. He can come out to your location. He can give you the correct contact if you're outside of the northern sort of Prince George's County and the neighboring counties. And then also, if you're looking to either start a memory cafe or a caregiver support group, they do have volunteers within the Alzheimer's Association that will come out and serve as facilitators. Or if you have someone within your village who would like to be trained as a facilitator, they can also provide you with that free training. So he will be the contact person to get in touch with. At the bottom here, they have a list of caregiver support groups that currently are offered. There are some that are in person. So for example, if, it's difficult sometimes to find caregiver support groups that are just for men. Sometimes men are comfortable being in groups with other men. And so they have tailored support groups that are listed on their website that are available. Some of these are in person. You put in your zip code and or any key words. If you want to put in your county or zip code, you can do that and search by that way. And you can find what caregiver support groups are in person. But of course, there are a number of support groups that are also offered online. Okay, so next, Dr. Thorne mentioned this, becoming a dementia friend. And so I think this is really a great and, fairly quick way to get a quick overview on learning about how, again, to engage with a person who may be diagnosed with dementia or Alzheimer's. It provides us, a number of short vignettes to watch, questions to answer. And then once you complete that, then you will earn your certificate. And so we also, within the city of Greenbelt, have our student interns become dementia friends, and they range from student nursing interns to social work to public health interns. And it's really another way to further normalize the conversation around Alzheimer's, but then also to encourage, the younger generation to just have some knowledge about, what is a dementia friend, what is a dementia friendly community, and just continuing that conversation. So this is the link here if you all want to start an initiative within your own villages. I think that would really be great, especially if you want to have an intergenerational initiative, start the conversation with school-aged children, and helping them to understand if they see a loved one that they're behaving or conducting themselves in a way that's different to them. It helps to just explain it to them, and it helps to normalize the conversation. And, I think it's a badge of honor, it may seem silly, but to be a dementia friend, and again, just normalizing that conversation. And even under the Dementia Friends, we are urging businesses to become dementia friendly businesses as well. So, again, it's something that we want to remove and decrease the stigma in talking about, especially for persons who may feel that they are becoming forgetful or they are having some challenges with recalling names or what have you. It should be that, as was mentioned before, that you want to be informed. You want to know what's going on. And so just having, normalizing the conversation, I think really helps to create a comfortable environment where more individuals can feel comfortable talking about that or even asking the questions. All right, so that leads me to talking about the memory screenings. The memory screenings are, we partner with Alzheimer's Foundation of America. We offer memory screenings in person throughout the northern sector of Prince George's County. They do offer virtual memory screenings, as you can see listed here. And again, the memory screenings are as important as going to get your annual checkup, to get, your numbers on your cholesterol, on your blood pressure. You should monitor your cognitive levels as well. And so what the brief memory screening does under this program is provide you with that baseline. So if you've never received a memory screening, this will be your baseline. And then that way, year to year, as you go back to get your memory screening, if you do get it in the office, or if you do it online, or if you go to one of an in-person event, you'll have that score to compare every year and just keep track of how you're doing cognitively. And then you can have an opportunity to detect early if you see that the number is off, or maybe it's the same, which is good, you're maintaining, but if you want to be more proactive and be intentional about, okay, I'm gonna do more brain exercises and eat healthier and exercise more. So just do more things to be intentional about improving your cognitive score that would help you to do that as well. So getting your memory screening and really sharing information in the community about why that's important is a part of what we do, and just educating, the benefits of getting your memory screenings every year. All right, this is another local resource for Prince George's County. There's a list, a link here that's provided, has a list of caregiver support groups that are in person and virtual. And then they also have a speakers bureau that speakers will provide a variety of topics, some related to dementia, the others are related to just caregiving. So both are relevant for this presentation. But yeah, you can click on the link and look at their topics and see if it's something that you feel would be beneficial to your village community. And we've connected with quite a few of them, and they offer some very, very good information and resources. All right, so this is another great resource that is nationwide, is the VA Caregiver Support Program. So they have a plethora of services that they provide, as you see listed here, available services on the right for persons who are veterans, or if the veteran is deceased, there are spousal benefits that are available that many people surprisingly still don't know that they may qualify for. So the first step would be for the individual, whether it is the veteran or their spouse, to call this toll-free line, and they can identify whether or not benefits, are available and that they qualify for them. That's the first step. And so once they get approved, if they're approved for benefits, then that opens up another door to getting home health support if they need, or, they may actually get an additional financial benefit. So that's sort of one area that they would benefit from. But this here, the education group calls, and they have a monthly webinar that they offer that's open to anyone. And I've attended, for the past several years, and they offer a wealth of information for both individuals who are veterans, but also non-veterans. And it's just great resources and programs that they make available to the community. So I provided the information here. But for those who are veterans or those who are spouses of veterans, this is just a short list of the available services that they have. And it's really disappointing that a lot of individuals in the community just don't know about the services that the VA provides as they as a caregiver, benefits that they could receive as they're caring for either the spouse of a veteran or a veteran. And then sometimes they know about it, but it's just really difficult. It's not accessible. It's difficult to just get access to the programs, or it takes a long time. So in my experience, going this route has yielded success. So I'll have that on the slide here to share with you. And this last slide just really highlights 3 evidence-based programs that we're proud to offer and make available. So the Iona Aging Well While Aging Solo is a class. They're all class series. And so that class series really focuses on it says aging solo, but it is for persons who may be aging and not have the support of family and or friends that are close by. They could be out of state, or just an individual who needs support. And I have the little booklet here. So essentially what this provides is what they call a handbook, and it walks you through 6 different topics and areas that you should look at. So for example, what advanced directives do you have in place? Looking at your home, is your home conducive to you aging in the community, or do you have access to the services that you need? Is your home accessible? If it isn't, then you have a decision to make whether or not you're going to stay in that home and make the necessary changes, or if you're going to move to a home or facility that will allow you to remain in place and age comfortably and safely. So, so those are just some of the, it talks about end of life questions and who do you want to make certain decisions when it comes to end of life. It looks at your social network and support network. So it really is more or less a conversation starter. It gives you these prompts and you talk through discussions, really just, urging you to think about these things now. And that's so very important to think about them now, whether you're doing this for yourself or working with, and this will be a caregiver working with their parent. It really urges the individual to have those conversations now while they can think through and put these documents in place and really walk away. This is a 6-week class, but we offer a sort of working group afterwards that we meet once a month for 6 months, and it keeps you accountable to help you develop this binder of what you want to happen, your end of life decisions. So that's the aging solo class. The Powerful Tools for Caregivers class is another one. We've been offering that for several years now. And it's really great, another class series, and it focuses on the caregiver. And it could be the caregiver, a person with dementia, or just a caregiver of a loved one or a person with a chronic illness. And it really highlights and provides the caregiver with the tips and tools that they need to be an effective caregiver, but also prioritizing taking time for themselves, whatever that may look like, which it could be, taking 10 minutes just to sit down and have a cup of coffee or tea, or really planning some time to take a couple hours, to hire respite or, organize respite to come in and allow them to take a break, and normalizing that. So a lot of times caregiving can happen overnight, unexpectedly, or it can happen just over time when you're dealing with caring for a person with dementia. The person may still be physically very well, but just cognitively declining. And so caregiving looks different, in every situation. So really prioritizing caring, for themselves. And because we don't, many times I've heard with families that I've worked with, that the person they're caring for, they're kind of going all in and doing what's necessary, scheduling the appointments, taking care of meals and transportation. But then the caregiver themselves experiences a health episode and they end up in the hospital, or something happens and their health is failing oftentimes faster than the one that they're caring for. So that's what this program really tries to highlight, and then, reduce the risk that they will just kind of put their care to the side. And so that's where the caregiver component comes in. After the 6-week class, we pair them with a volunteer who will provide follow-up calls and resources to just check in really and see how they're doing as a caregiver, if they're implementing the tools from the class, and if they need any other, to be connected with any other resources or programs that will help them to continue to be an effective caregiver. And then the last program, which I think is, very relevant to what we're talking about, is the Stronger Memory Program. This program is offered by Goodwin House, and it's a great class series. It's a 12-week class series, which is a little bit longer, but it's really shown great success. And I think it's been well received because it's more of a proactive way to address any signs of forgetfulness or having challenges recalling names. And so for persons who participate in this class series, they do not have to have a diagnosis. It's, again, to be proactive. It's a non-pharmacological way of, addressing any type of changes that they've noticed in their memory. And so the key to this program, it focuses on very basic math problems, reading aloud, and then actually writing, which is something that, we don't do enough of, I think. And so those 3 tasks that individuals are doing every day, but then also in their sessions, is they're put in place to engage certain parts of the brain which are underutilized. And so in working with, I believe it was not Marymount University, I'll have to find the name of it. They actually did a study that followed individuals who participated in this class, and the results were that the participants maintained or improved their cognitive abilities after participating in this 12-week class series. So these are programs that I think that will be great to offer to the community, in addition to connecting them with the practical resources that I shared before. And lastly, I'll say it's always just great to look at other resources that are available if you're within a municipality or within the district. Just looking at your police department, if your police department has any crisis intervention social workers. We do here in Greenbelt, code enforcement, and then the county mediation service. These services are free. Free is always best to start that way. And, just consider partnering with them and see what they're able to offer to your villages and your communities. All right, so I think just from what Dr. Thorne has covered and the practical programs and resources that I shared, it's a lot of information, but I hope you all have a lot of questions. Thank you again for providing this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Ms. Johnson. Dr. Thorne and Ms. Johnson will be available for questions. Please, I understand that Mary Jo is going to have us have a 5-minute break. Please don't leave if you have the time available to stay on, not only to contribute and ask your questions, but so much of the learning happens in response to people's questions. So I know, at least from my experience, that is what I found. So I did want to take a moment while everybody is here together for us to, in whatever way, applaud Dr. Thorne and Ms. Johnson for their presentations today. Thank you so much. I mean, personally, I want to thank you so much. I've had the opportunity to work with both of these amazing women before, and I really have some takeaways from these presentations today. And if you have any, if you're attending and have any questions, anything that you wish to share, I see already people populating the chat with questions, and please continue to do so. Turning over to Mary Jo, if you have anything to say, and lead us into the brief break.
Let's see, Mary Jo is muted. So I think we'll just go ahead into break and come on back if you want to be part of the discussion.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So let's look at everybody meeting back. Let's say by 11:10. No later than 11:10. Sharon, Claudia, thank you so much. This has really been a wonderful program. And Sharon, I see that you dropped your contact information in the chat. Claudia, if you have the opportunity to do so as well, that'd be really helpful. Mary Jo, would you like to bring us back in? And then I have a couple of questions to start with.
All right. Well, I hope everybody is back with their cup of coffee or their bottle of water or whatever it may be. And I want to add my thanks already to Sharon and Dr. Thorne for these presentations. I mean, this was just so rich. I'm looking forward to seeing copies of the slides so I can remember it all. And I'm so glad that we got it recorded because I think that your comments were so helpful. So actually, I'm just going to turn it right back to you and Elizabeth to handle the Q&A.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mary Jo. So Sharon, Claudia, I know that I had shared 2 questions with you that had come in from our WAVE Board of Directors that I think are probably on just about everybody's minds. One was about if you could speak to the importance of things like advanced directives, for some people, most pulsed forms, these sorts of things, and where they fit in preserving agency for those who are experiencing dementia, increasing dementia, and for the peace of mind of caregivers involved.
Sure,
And
yes, thank you
turning
for-
to both of you for answers.
Okay. So I can start it off just by saying, having the advanced, well, let me just start off by saying this. The most form and the advanced directives are 2 different set of forms that you need to have. So for the advanced directives, the way that I would explain that is it's like a living will. So it's a set of written instructions that allows you to make decisions about your future. When and if a person is in a situation that they can no longer make decisions. So that differs from a most form, which is for right now. So, it contains a set of instructions, like more clinical medical instructions, whether or not you want to be resuscitated or you want to receive other life-sustaining measures. The most form is followed as soon as it's completed. So say, for example, you have advanced directives and an individual goes into the hospital, and they go through this, do you want to be resuscitated? Do you want to receive life-sustaining measures? And the information, whatever is decided upon in the most form is what the doctors will follow. So a most form can change. The advanced directive is what a person has in place to say, okay, down the line, if something happens to me, this is what I would like to have done. But if they change their mind 2 years down the road, the most form is what will be reflected in that moment, and what will be followed. Okay, so that's sort of the difference between those 2. To kind of go to the next step about having those advanced directives in place. So power of attorney, your living will, financial, the financial power of attorney in place. Those are, we really can't say enough about how important those are to have in place ahead of time. That's what the Aging Solo program really highlights. There have been several situations where family members caring for persons, who have with dementia, are having challenges because maybe none of the names are on the accounts. The person is no longer competent to sign paperwork or even sign for them to become their power of attorney. So now they have to go the route of guardianship, and that's a lengthy process. And so the earlier that you can have these conversations, no matter how uncomfortable they are, the better. And there used to be a program that we put on, which was called 5 at 55. So the 5 documents you should have in place. And I'll try to research that and see if it's offered. We haven't offered it, in I think since before the pandemic. But it's a very, it's a great program. And I'll find the information included in my slides when I send them. But, urging your village members, to have those forms in place, and I can include templates of them, of the links in the presentation as well. For Maryland and DC, I think Virginia as well.
Thank you very much, Sharon. Dr. Thorne, anything that you would like to add?
I think she covered it well.
Thank you. And then another question that came forward, and both of you touched on this, but for villages, the challenge is villages run on a shoestring, so you spoke about some programs that may be available for free and how to connect with different resources. And also the frustration that there is no one location to find everything. If villages are looking to start a program that will serve their members, to serve their volunteers, to serve caregivers of their members, you shared any other particular low cost or free opportunities that villages would be able to engage to open the conversation, connect with resources, benefit their members and volunteers?
So I do have, and it was my intention to share with you directly, an Excel spreadsheet that lists the training resources that I identified and the websites and how to access them. I'm just thinking about, I guess I can include that as an attachment to the slide presentation. And so it is a matter of doing the research and going to the website and accessing the curriculum and finding the caregiving videos. Well, it's there. We did that as a committee, and I can share that Excel sheet with you.
Beautiful. Thank you very much, Dr. Thorne. Sharon, anything to add to that?
No, I think, just sort of without having to, search 25 different places. I think, Alzheimer's is really great. I'm not, I was pulled away for a moment. Alzheimer's Association, and then also the Alzheimer's Foundation. And so having just the videos and having those conversation starters about the driving, or, when to make the decision to bring in home care, or when to make the decision to transition to assisted living. So I think those two organizations, national organizations, are really great about providing those types of practical resources that aren't pages long. You can be just mentally exhausted from reading so much. So just watching brief videos, or having sort of, 10 steps or less rather of conversation starters, how to start that conversation, even with family members. So those are the two. And I think I have the links in my presentation, but I'll include it if not.
Thank you very much. And there is a third question that I think applies to many villages, both in attendance and just across the country. As villages have existed for several years in some cases, villages are trying to figure out how to navigate, how to both serve members, and the reality that as members are experiencing, some members are experiencing increasing signs of dementia. What, if you have any advice or anything to share for villages that are in this bind, where the question is, can villages continue to responsibly serve members with increasing dementia? And you've shared some resources, but anything to advise on how to navigate some of that decision-making process, and how to pull in resources to make it possible to both serve as the village and not be irresponsible in how they connect with their members.
I can I start that responding. I'll start a response to that. So my first thought is that it can be challenging, to sort of draw that line, because as a village, you want the goal and the mission is to serve and support your community. But to do that in a way, as you said, you know, that is responsible, and not overextending the mission or the services that the villages provide, because each village, you know, and how each village is made up and its, you know, number of volunteers varies. So I think that having a resource to share, you know, resource that you know is, you know, that they will be connected with a person that can help them to receive the services they need. That it would be my suggestion. I know I can imagine that the villages are overwhelmed with maybe requests for services, requests for information and resources, but it's difficult to be everything to everyone, you know, and I know, you know, serving families and helping families is what the desire is, but how to do that in a way that you're able to still serve as, you know, as a village, but then also connect them with the appropriate services. So again, you know, connecting them with the Alzheimer's Association, you know, therapists or counselor who can help them to develop that care plan would be one of my first thoughts, or Department of Aging. So depending on what's needed, it's kind of challenging to kind of give you a cookie cutter answer to say, okay, just give them this number, because it just depends on what they need. But it's important, I think, you know, to have a resource sheet. I mean, I will say that, because that removes, I think, you know, the thinking out of it when you have, you know, 5 numbers or 3 numbers that, you know, okay, you can call these people and they will pick up, they will help you, you know. So I think that developing that for your area, you know, it will go a long way in kind of removing a lot of the legwork and having to research resources every time someone has a question or needs services.
Thank you,
So that's
Sharon.
my first thought. Mhm.
I really appreciate that share. And something that came to mind is sometimes we have these listing of phone numbers, and it's always good to have reached out, made that connection, know that that is not only a good contact, but to have the idea of how they answer your questions and concerns, how you best access for that resource. Thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. Thorne, anything that you would like to add? And Seal, I do see that you have your hand raised.
I believe that starting a work group that will proactively begin to develop relationships with many of the organizations and partners, I think that that's particularly important, so that you know who is there when the need arises. I also look at this from the perspective of mitigating risks, particularly in having volunteers go into homes that may not be trained, who are conducting assessments. And that's where I think it's really important to partner with the local area agency on aging, or to contract with an organization that has the capacity and capability to provide more of the professional services that are required. So I think at the lay volunteer level, it's raising awareness and disseminating information and having conversations. Then I think once you shift to the next level, which is conducting assessments and referring for services, you need to have trained professionals in place to do that.
Thank you.
Through partners, because I know this is largely volunteer, through partners, as a cost-effective mechanism.
Thank you so much. Now I'm going to turn over to Elizabeth, who will manage some of the questions that have come forward and hands raised.
Yeah, so I'll just do those real briefly and then go to Seal and anyone else that has their hand raised. So there are a lot of resources that are posted in the chat. So for people that haven't seen them yet, Capitol Hill Village posted that they have a group, so you can connect with them. That's a support group. Then there's some information posted on that if you go into the VTV website that you can find resources. And then there's one follow-up question to something we had just talked about 2 questions before, which is, do one of you want to speak to the fact that too often doctors in the hospital ignore the advance directive and most or post, and how can families and caregivers be prepared to overcome this resistance?
I'm not
Well-
going to speak to that. Go ahead, Ms. Johnson.
Okay, so what can help? Yes, that is an unfortunately issue. What can help is if the doctor's office or maybe the hospital is provided with a copy of the most, a most recent one, and they already have it in the client file. That helps, if it's already there versus, okay, you saying I have it, but it's not really accessible. So, and sometimes things can kind of, be in flux, and then, you're trying to throw this in here. So I would say, if possible, providing that to the doctor or hospital, if it's a hospital that a person frequents, helps.
Also, the most can change over time. And I think that that's important because at one stage of care, you may have, resuscitate, intubate, or what have you. If as the person becomes, the disease becomes more chronic, maybe it is a do not resuscitate. And so I think that the updated most needs to be in files and widely disseminated.
Okay, thank you so much. And Seal, if you want to go ahead and unmute, and if anybody else wants to be a part of the discussion, go ahead and raise your hand too.
Hi, real quick. First, thank you both, Dr. Thorne and Sharon, both for a great discussion and presentation. Sharon, I wanted to ask you how long your dementia-friendly effort has been in place. I'm really impressed that you have that additional caregiver support grant-funded program. That's amazing. Our village is part of our city's dementia-friendly effort, Dementia-Friendly Alexandria. But like so many things, we're all just adding that to our plate. We Goodwin Living, a senior living community in our area, very big place. They committed to doing this 6 years ago when our dementia friendly effort started, and an administrator, was put in charge of it. And of course, I guess what I'm trying to say is we're struggling. We're all just trying to do this on top of our jobs, and it's a real struggle to just even do the bare minimum. And I'm proud of what we have done, but it's not moving that fast. Mm-hmm. I guess my question is how did you, and Barbara, I was intrigued by the comment you put in the chat about the village in Chicago. I don't know if they have been in charge of that, but it's no small effort to do dementia friendly. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. I just think a village, if you're taking that on, you've got to have partners. Mm-hmm. It is important. It's an important effort, but understand that you can't go it alone. I don't think a village could easily go it alone. Maybe that's my cynicism, but having, seen over the past 5 or 6 years how much work really needs to go into having your website and scheduling info sessions and training the people who are going to lead the session. So I am really all ears to hear how people are doing that successfully. Sharon, I'm very impressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Cecile. I'll just kind of start off to give you the gist of how we've grown. We've started back in 2015, and it was a slow upward hill. It was just a slow process. But now we've grown. We have an action team under Dementia Friendly. So we have Dementia Friendly Northern, Mid, and South County. So we have 3 different sectors. And in Northern County, we have an action team of about 15 to 20 people of, volunteers in the community, professionals. And so that really is what helps us to do what we, as much as we're able to do with the memory screenings and the powerful tools for caregivers, because we train our action team members, and they all volunteer. So it kind of helps to spread the responsibility and the weight of continuing to run it. But I'll be happy to talk with you more offline, and to provide any other support that I can, if you'd like.
Do all of your action team members, do they lead sessions?
So leading sessions as far as educational sessions or presentations, or so no, we utilize individuals from the Speakers Bureau. So we search, and so the other thing I didn't mention rather, is that we have college interns. So that's a huge help, like public health interns, social work interns, in doing that legwork to research speakers, because we have a YouTube channel where we, at least 2 to 3 times a month, they're leading sessions or caregiver webinars, or some of our Stronger Memories classes. So we train them, we're co-presenting with them. So it really helps once you cast your net wide and you're getting volunteers, and you have student interns, if you're able to take on the additional individuals.
So thank you, Sharon. I was around and involved at the beginning of Dementia Friendly in Prince George's County. And I think what really leveraged the capacity of Prince George's County is that the county executive, this was one of his most important programs, because his wife had Alzheimer's. And so I think in so doing, it's getting the political support. So there are a number of other high-profile political people involved in the initial Dementia Friends and Dementia Friendly efforts in Prince George's County. And that's had a lot to do with, and actually was at the White House Conference on Aging in 2015. I think what would be really important when you look at Dementia Friends and Dementia Friendly, there are several cities, including Prince George's County. Boston is another one that is considered a best practice. Colorado is also one that's considered a best practice. So I think it's looking at what Prince George's County is doing, but also looking at what some of the best practices are. The National Agency Area on Aging, they also have an assessment tool where a plan where you can look at how to assess your capacity to implement Dementia Friends and Friendly, as well as developing a business plan as well. And that's on I'll tell you what the website is in a second. I'll put it in the chat.
Thank you so much. Yeah, there's so much good information in the chat, as well as all of the resources, of course, that were in the slides. And as Mary Jo posted, those will be on the WAVE website. I don't see anybody else with hand raised or specific discussion questions. Mary Jo does say also, separate from this presentation, that WAVE wants to hear from you about your village's priorities, what future discussion topics we could be covering, or how you want to get involved. So her email is in the chat, president@wavevillages.org, and we'd love to hear from you. Layla, anything else?
No, just to say again, thank you for joining us, Dr. Thorne and Ms. Johnson, and just really appreciate everybody coming together, and for so many people staying all the way through. It makes for a great first plenary. And turning back to Mary Jo to take us through, and thank you, Elizabeth, for managing the process. It's really important.
Well, I'll just add my thanks again to Sharon and Dr. Thorne for this absolutely incredible, so deep, rich, and broad, all at the same time, overwhelming presentation. It sounds so promising. I understand Seal's position that, for villages, just like for any individual caregiver, it is overwhelming, and it's hard to know where to start. So thank you to all who did stay online. I hope to see you again at our May 15th plenary. And I also hope to see you if you are interested at the February 7th session on recruiting volunteers and at the other Zoom sessions that are coming up. So by all means, don't hesitate to contact me. And we hope to see you again, either via Zoom or eventually in person. And also thanks again to Layla and Elizabeth for really creating this presentation. Bye-bye.
I'm privileged.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you.
I'm signing off like Gerson Keeler. Be well, do good work, stay in touch.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Bye-bye.